It is Thursday, December 15th, 2011. And this is Day 9 Daily number 389, part 3. Something about Zenio is what we're looking at. The fact that Zenio fell so far behind seems not to really affect our Zerg buddy so much. He's doing some attacks like this, and almost always we would start to go, ugh, a Roach Hydra force being really, really aggressive? What is this? This is an important development that a lot of players have discovered about Roach Hydra, where aggression is the real key. Getting to 160-ish food and starting to really ramp up into action. A brief history of Roach Hydra. First, it was just the mixture that you got because it was easy. Hydras do damage, shoot up and down. Roaches do damage, take lots of damage, and you just... Yay! And then all of a sudden, Protoss started getting a lot of Colossus and Force Fields, and Roach Hydra would die very, 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 very easily. Extremely, stupidly easily. Cool. So then there was this period of experimentation where all Zergs said, ugh, it can't be stopped, it's too good. Players like Morrow developed a Roach Baneling drop style that was very, very potent. Still is quite potent. You had the Destiny Infestor Ling style. You had mass Mutalisking going on from players like Demaga. And then a whole bunch of Korean Zergs were really the forerunners in just continuing to go Roach Hydra, but really timing everything outrageously cleverly and being super aggro with it. And boom, now we have the rise of players like Stefano and the comeback of a player like Zenio in this game. Notice how lean all the stuff is back home at home base. But a single evolution chamber. No geysers 5 and 6. Many expand coming up, and soon enough expand and expand coming up. And in a sense, what you are essentially trying to do, there's a couple of tweaks here and there, but what you're essentially going for is to get in a lot of engagements, do lots of exchanges where you don't come out too far behind, and the fact that you're keeping his base count so low while you're getting your own base count so high will lead you eventually to a win. And again, this might seem real freaking atrocious. This might seem real vomit-worthy. But we want to maintain control of ground. That's one of the biggest things you can't afford to avoid. If your Roach count is too low, your Hydras will evaporate so quickly. So incredibly quickly. So, when's that trigger point? It's generally around 160 food. This is just sort of a description of a trend. Normally, what's actually happening is the player is looking at his forces and he's going, yeah, that's about right for me. That's actually good. Let's go with that. And this tends to happen around 160, 170. But one thing that I want to note, a few drones getting snuck in every now and again. Not a super exclusive pattern to it, but just as he's making headway, he sneaks in a few drones and goes right back to this production. Interestingly, this is simple to describe. You're going Roach with all the upgrades, Roach with all the upgrades, Hydra with all the upgrades, Evolution Chamber getting all the upgrades. And then you sneak in a couple of drones here and there. There's a couple of drones that just made their way out here. Just sneak in a few. And for the most part, just continue to make Roach's Lings have good army positioning and be aggressive. It sounds really easy, and hilariously enough, this can end up feeling very difficult, because players are used to big windows where they make drones, right? They're used to this huge, like, you know, okay, now here's the time when it's time to make 22 drones, because you have all that larva built up on those hatches, and you just need one spot to get 22 right out. Zenio's just kind of going 5S, D, all right. My 5th hatch, and by the way, that's what he does do. He hotkeys nearby hatches together. He's just snatching up one hatch and saying, hey, you know, these 5 from this hatchery, I want you to be drones. And then all the rest, just churning out units as quickly as possible. A-quap. See, look, around 160, 170, being aggressive. Try not to let him step it up. Now, there is one unfortunate consequence that we're seeing play out here. I think that this is important to note because not all your battles will feel this way. For any of you very perceptive viewers, you're noticing that all the engagements from Protoss thus far have been out in the field. There was one that was sort of like crammed in this alley, but other than that, here's one that's about to happen in open field. There was another one here. There was another one here. You know, there were some more engagements over here. A lot of this is happening due to the fact that Protoss has taken this as a third base, and as a result, you saw my mouse movement. He needs to have this army here to get in the way. Notice how the Zerg army and this base has to go. This Zerg army has to go through this Protoss army to get to this base. So many of you who are trying to be aggressive with this Roach Hydra are going to be saying to yourselves, well, what the hell, Day 9? In this game, Zenio was lucky enough to have all these units out in the middle, where it was a better angle. At the same time, Protoss has all these extra money, so this is actually a bigger army than you should have to deal with. Zenio thinks he's keeping his opponent pinned on 2 bases, that third isn't up. In other words, there should be one of 2 situations. Either 1, he has a big army in an exposed position, because of a third base, or he has a smaller army in a better position, which means he's on 2 base. They end up being kind of equivalent. So if he somehow has a huge army in a good position on 2 base, just be careful with your Roach Hydra aggression, and maybe it's time to tech up to a hive. But while Zenio is continuing to force these engagements again and again and again and again, look at these aggressive Zerg. We've seen Zenio yesterday, excuse me, Stefano yesterday, and Zenio today. Just aggro, aggro, aggro it up. Hydras pull back a little bit before the Roaches are done because you need to have ground control. Yeah, you know, I don't think these Void Rays are going to be in the game much longer, but these Archons and Stalkers, Jesus, 4 Archons doing 40 damage per shot. That's basically 2-shotting Hydras. And again, one of the reasons why I want to stab this Protoss for not getting his +2 upgrades, because then you can kill Hydras in 2 shots. But yeah, now that we have ground dominance with our Roaches, we're more than likely going to engage. Hey, when's a good trigger point to begin attacking? Around 160, 170. Go, go, go. Checking up. Checking it up. Continuing to expand. Expanding, 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 forcing more engagements. And here is the most basic thing that you should always be doing is scouting expansions, because if you ever get to a point where you're like, let me send a Zergling here to block his expansion, and you get there and there's an expansion done with cannons up and like 30 probes mining, then that means that you have F'd up. And you want to prevent said F-upping in future battles. We either make Roaches or we're making Lings and Hydras. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. Yeah. Forcing engagements, man. And one thing I want to note, what happens when we're out of other upgrades to do? Get the +1 attack upgrade. And look at this Overlord speed going down. Yeah, there it is. This, in a sense, this aggression is a big substitute for getting something up like a Spire right now. We're just trying to hammer our opponent down with superior production. And we're trying to slowly gain an economic edge. This is actually increasingly becoming a common technique, is when Zergs are feeling like they're a little bit ahead in economy, or when they're feeling like, actually when they're under some pressure and they don't actually have that many options, they go into big, 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 big aggression mode. And finally we end up killing off the Void Rays, but we still need to be very careful because we don't actually have any of those Roaches. Want to maintain that ground control. Expanding, expanding, expanding. Oh. While we can still be aggressive, we should. Just continuing to engage, 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 engage. Now I have an interesting question. Why are we not trying to just rush around and kill off this expansion? Why are we not trying to rush down and kill off this expansion? We're trying to force trades of armies because, again, we are claiming by our play that we are going to be slowly pulling ahead in the economic race, and we're just trying to trade armies again and again and again and again, keeping these armies nice and low. So that way, when we do end up in some sort of final engagement, you have already run out of funds. While you can still force these trades, try to go for it. And one thing that I really like at this point in time is that right as Zenio's really starting to get into a comfortable position. Where, the air units are down, and the Roach count is starting to get high. When your Roach count starts to really rack up, this is what Stefano does so brilliantly, is these subtle, quick split-ups of his units. You notice? You notice they're going, ooh, I spotted that expansion, it didn't feel nice, so I'm going to start spotting all expansions. Yeah. So right when your opponent's starting to split himself up, do these little things. These little tiny runarounds. Holding this watchtower's good. You see how aggression kind of let us get into a good position to start doing this sort of stuff? And most important of all, the instant we ended up stopping these non-stop attacks, these non-stop engagements, that's when we said, hey, it's teching time. Where's the infestation pit? Actually, yeah, there it is. Boom. Infestation pit. Throwing down a ton of spine crawlers. Hey, it's not time to attack anymore. We actually do have an economic lead. We're really solid, set, done. We can't quite force these engagements so well anymore. And then a nice, smooth little play like this. Very often, a player will view this move as the killing blow. Oh, he just ran a whole bunch of roaches in. Had to run away from one, got the other. Oh, damn. If only Protoss had blah, 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 because Protoss had this game, etc., 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 etc. In reality, what won Zerg the game was all those attacks that let him get 1, 2, 3 more bases up. And notice that these gas geysers, I actually want to come back because I was talking so much about the gas geysers this game. When did these guys get thrown down? There we go. While we were doing all these trades up in mid, one of the bigger transitional things that we did was just gently get 2 more geysers. Just slowly start accumulating a little bit more gas. We're actually almost... no, we're not almost out of gas in the main. My bad, wrong time. But this is one of these subtle transitional elements. Just getting 2 more gas geysers, just kind of slightly setting it up. And if we come back to that 28-minute mark where we were, or the 26-minute mark where the replay wanted to load up, we haven't actually taken gas at these expansions. And we're not actually getting that much more income because, again, if you have 80-some drones, you won't really get much more of a marginal advantage from getting more expansion mineral-wise. But it's the fact that he secured these extra bases up right around the time when Protoss was drying up on his bases. That's what won Zerg the game. This little move here was like a formality. This is just standard putting pressure on the Zerg buddy, or on the Protoss buddy. And I think at this point, etc. is a good recap for what's coming up. Slow transitioning. We're not instantly getting Hive. We're just going to get the infestation pit up. We're going to start the pathogen glands. We're still getting all this other fun fanciness. There's the freaking weapons level +2 that Wulong Storm did not get. Wounds me. Just hurts me deep. And yeah, more engagements, more aggression, more aggression. Such a great aggressive force. It's very easy to see this many air units and to think, I have to get infestors up, or I need to get corruptors up. That's what's cool about Roach Hydra with flexible upgrades, and in particular this Overlord speed to sort of help back us up a little bit. We don't actually need all those other fancy shenanigans. The big theme in my eyes is continuing to have an excess of roaches in almost every engagement, being careful not to over Hydra, going Zergling and Hydra when we had to do one or the other, and expanding all throughout the aggression. Only now, as we're starting to transition into something else, are we getting these geysers up. Only now that we're getting infestors. Only now that we can potentially get up a hive. And that is what excited me and delighted me oh so much. So I'm going to take 3 brief questions before I leave for dinner. And I'm going to get my twiddle stick. Someone at a tournament gave me this thing. I like it. I like it quite a lot. I can do my cool little, woo, can throw it everywhere. I can do my one of these things. Yeah. I generally drop it. Alright. 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 Road to Diamond says, Dear Day 9, I love constant Roach Hydra exchanges, but if Wulong retains his Voids and Templar and gets 2+ Colossus, Zenio would evaporate. How should he deal with this transition? One of the ways that... So let me first say the way it should work, and then why what Zenio did ended up being a mistake. If your opponent is getting Void Rays and Templar on 2 base, he can't really get 2 Colossus and have any reasonable sized army at all. I mean, he can get them. He's going to have a tiny army. You're going to hit it with Roach Hydra. You're going to slightly lose that battle. And then your next wave is going to come in and you just crush everything. So it's one of those resource issues. It's kind of like if, you know, like a Terran's on 1 base. And you're like, well, what if he goes 1-1-1 and gets a couple battle cruisers there as well? It's like, well, he doesn't have that much money and time to do that. That's why I think Zenio made a little bit of a mistake not checking that 3rd that was on the other side. Honestly, if I'm in Zenio's spot and I'm playing that game, I'm going to be thinking, jeez, how did this guy have that many units? I mean, hell, if we actually come back to the game, he had these 8 gateways and 2 stargates just pouring out units. So freaking many units. That's kind of going to make me go, ugh. The big thing, though, is... you can go Roach Corruptor. Zenio was a little bit delayed on his Spire, but he had an excellent, clear sense of what his opponent was doing. If he's going Templar Void Ray with Blink and on Archons and all that stuff, there's just not really going to be that many Colossi coming out anytime soon. But let's envision a player who does what Wulong Storm did and starts to go for Colossus. What's the big thing that I said you need to be very careful of? Maintaining ground control. Having a lot of roaches. If you're always thinking in that term, almost no ground army that he tries to surprise you with is going to be that hard to adapt to. You start making largely all roaches, and then you just pop out a few corruptors. We saw Stefano actually do it with 4 corruptors, just instantly, you know, stopped his big aggression with Roach Lane, got 4 corruptors, boom, like sprinted right into action again. And you're going to find that it's a very, very quick way to sort of keep it up. Hydras start to get phased out and the corruptors get brung in. Dat is the big one. Dat is the big one. Day 9, I feel as though Zenio got lucky. Oh, this is from Liquid Puck. I like that. And the previous question was from Road to Diamond. Sorry about that. Should have said that before. Day 9, I feel as though Zenio got lucky winning this game because of the fact Protoss forgot to upgrade ground weapons. Would you agree with this? I would say that Zenio got a little lucky that his opponent didn't do that. I would say kind of lucky that that was the case. But at the same time, Zenio did a gigantic big fuck up by not checking the left. And I do mean to use the F word because that is a huge up, right? That's really, really, really bad. So in a sense, the huge mess up plus, oop, gained a little luck, I still wouldn't read into it too much. It was so much bigger that Zenio wasn't actively checking that expansion. I think this is going to increasingly become a big theme in the matchup. Whenever Protoss is being aggressive with air, you must begin scouting expansions because Liquid Hero, MC, in this game Wulong Storm, all Protosses nowadays are starting to really expand quickly after they go air. Last question. Last question. Last question. Last question. Knockies. It says, Day 9. What's the difference between getting many geysers fast with a double evolution chamber and a lot of upgrades earlier, rather than doing what Zenio did, which was lower geysers and a single evolution chamber? Couldn't he just tech up faster as well? The fact of the matter is that in this game, I don't like bringing numbers into things. I once read a great quote that for every equation you put in a book, it cuts the readership by half. Which I try to avoid that as much as possible, but damn it, I'm going to use some numbers. One drone mines at a rate of 40 minerals a minute. It's a good number to know. A worker is about 40 minerals a minute. So if you have, let's say, Let's say we are on 2 geysers, like we did with Zenio. What if we tried to go for 3 or 4 geysers? That's 3 to 6 drones suddenly not mining minerals. So that's 120 to 240 minerals per minute that we're losing. In other words, if we actually do get those 2 geysers, that's like a hatchery a minute that we don't get. That's pretty substantial. And then when you start counting in the extra drone to build the evolution chamber, and you actually start to get real super ultra nitpicky, you realize all these extra little things that you do severely eat into your minerals. And it's not so much about computation, it's more about feel. You will feel more broke if you do it, like way more broke. You will feel inflexible is the big problem. You get your big upgrade army going and you're getting ready to get set up, and all of a sudden an attack comes in and you don't quite have enough money to deal with it. Or, like that attack comes in that we saw the Protoss player do, and you got your geysers so early that you struggle to hold that off, and then all of a sudden he's coming in with air units and you're trying to throw down all these extra spore crawlers to hold that off, and suddenly you find yourself in a position where you have a ton of gas that you actually can't really find a place to expand. Or you can't really find a place to use. You just have all this extra gas. So in my eyes, winding up with the upgrades earlier, I guess is fine if you can get away with it. The biggest issue is in terms of feel. A lot of players will prefer to do this low geyser count because you get the extra minerals and you have that sort of flexibility. But I think the most important reason of all is that it helps make your decisions easier. How many roaches and how many lings do I get? You could create some complicated table based upon what he's building, or you could just say, I have 2 geysers, I'll make as many roaches as I can on 2 geysers, all the rest lings. And that tends to work out. A lot of players kind of have these rule of thumb type things that they're working with, and it helps quite a bit. There's, obviously a lot more complexity you could discover, but never avoid trying to make things simpler for the sake of making it easier. Guys, that's going to wrap up today's daily. Again, I recommend for the wonderful reading break, that is winter break coming up, that you go get The Art of Learning and Akira Volume 1 that I have linked down at the bottom of twitch.tv/day9tv. Of course, there are going to be subscriber events happening on Sunday. For any of you who are unfamiliar with the Day 9 subscriber program, it is a completely voluntary, do not have any obligation to do program, where if you would like, you may donate $5 per month to help support the daily. This helps ensure that the content is always free, which quite honestly it always will be because I'm the one who has say. It will always be free. So if you would like to help support the show, you may for $5 a month. You have absolutely no obligation to. I'm delighted simply for the gift of your eyeballs. And to do that, it is justin.tv/day9tv/subscribe. It's also on my live pages channel in the comments how to do it. But you get a fancy chat badge, which soon enough is going to be the 9 Favicon. Yeah. And you get to play in fun little events like on Sundays. And of course you get free giveaways and stuff and little fun events. But the subscribers mainly know about that because they're the ones who get the emails about it. I'm gonna go to my Twitter and get some free shirts from Jinx. Da-da, Jinx. Da-da, Jinx.